Cincinnati, Ohio, down quickly with Bob Trumpy. If there's been one big overmatch in this game, it has been the passing numbers. Look at that. 187 yards for Anderson and the Bengals, just 9 for his counterpart Gifford Nielsen and the Houston Oilers. I guess Gifford can't be expected to get a lot of passing yards, though, when he never has the ball.
You're right. He only threw the ball 5 times in the first half, and of course that 5th attempt was just a desperation pass in the last 3 seconds. Now, if you're Eddie Biles, Jim Schaffner, and the Houston Oilers, you've got a real dilemma. They're trying to diversify their offense. They're staring at a start of 0-1 if they don't get something on the board here offensively in the second half. Do you go back to the I formation? Give the ball to Campbell a number of times. Last year, when the Houston Oilers beat Cincinnati, Campbell carried it 38 times for 182 yards. It's got to be a worried halftime and locker room for the Oilers.
Well, I think one of the things we might see, Bob, is Tim Wilson, the fine tight end, coming back in as an up-back in the I formation in front of Earl Campbell, the formation they used when he ran so often. Anderson, who was, it's interesting also that the 3 MVPs in the National Football League the last 3 years have come out of the AFC Central. It was Bradshaw of the Steelers in '79, Sipe of the Browns in '80, and last year it was Kenny Anderson of Cincinnati. I think Gifford Nielsen might be a year or 2 away from getting it.
And I'll tell you one thing, 1 year away from this game, Ken Anderson was removed and then came on to be the league's MVP, so he's obviously having a very great day so far.
But they might go back to that power formation with Wilson as the up back. We might see a lot of the greatest back in football, Earl Campbell, in the second half, as the Houston Oilers have to do something to get back in this game. Really, they're not that far behind. A touchdown makes it a whole different ball game. Back after this. 2 yards rushing. They have a more than double edge. In yards passing, it has been absolutely unbelievably their dominance. And really, the Houston offense just hasn't been out there enough, and when they have, they've been able to sustain offense and get the first down. So you really have to think, Bob, that might go to this other offense that's worked successfully in the past against Cincinnati. As we point out again, the Houston Oilers, led by this man, Earl Campbell, have beaten Cincinnati 6 of the last 7 times they've played.
But it's a heck of a decision for Eddie Biles and his coaching staff to make. Opening game of the 1982 season, and for 2 years they've tried to go away from Earl Campbell. There's one stat that was not shown in the first half stats. The Bengals are 8 of 11 in converting 3rd downs to 1st downs, and the Oilers are 1 of 4. So as you can see, when they are on the field, they're not successful, and you got to turn that 3rd down into a 1st down. So far, I'm surprised at the ability of the Bengals to just move the football up and down the field.
Gifford Nielsen set 3 NCAA passing records his senior season at Brigham Young, the first of a series of fine quarterbacks to come out of that school, followed by Mark Wilson, who went to the Raiders, and now Jim McMahon is with the Chicago Bears. Gifford Nielsen, though, will probably be looking for something big to happen. They do need a big play in badly, although Earl Campbell straight up the middle can be a big play.
Don, you were talking about the MVPs of the league coming out of the AFC Central. As you watch Ken Anderson warm up, he's got to be tired after that first half. Jim Schaffner was the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns the year that Brian Sipe was the most valuable player and produced an awful lot of offense. And now here in Houston, really struggling to try to find something that they can hang their hat on other than Earl Campbell.
The baseball season is coming to a close, and NBC Sports is with the pennant races every inning of the way. Next Saturday, we'll focus on the American League West with Reggie Jackson, those California Angels playing the Blue Jays in Toronto, or the division-leading Kansas City Royals will be in Minnesota to take on the Twins. Coverage begins at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time with Major League Baseball, an inside look. Check your local listings for the game in your area. For all the pennant pressure, it's NBC Sports, the home of the 1982 World Series. And the home of Super Bowl 17 when NFL 82 culminates with the big game this year at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And Jim Bridge could very well be kicking off in that game if the Oilers and the rest of this league are unable to contend with the high-power offense of the Cincinnati Bengals. Gary Allen is back deep now with Carl Roaches for the kickoff by Breach. Angles it away and out of bounds. So while we have a moment, let's switch back to New York as we go to NFL 82 in an update.
In Buffalo, the Bills are playing without Joe Cribbs, but it hasn't mattered here. Joe Ferguson connecting 6 yards with Jerry Butler, who's only been in camp 10 days. It is Buffalo 14, Kansas City 6.
And here at Riverfront Stadium, it is Cincinnati 10 and Houston nothing as Jim Bridge kicked his angled kick out of bounds. 5-yard mark off. We'll set the ball back now. He'll kick it off again.
I got to a feeling that the Bengals special teams coach, Bruce Coslett, does not mind that at all. He's going to continue squibbing it along the ground to try to keep it away from Carl Roaches. Roaches is one of the players on the Houston Oilers that in an instant can turn a football game around. They want to keep it out of his hands, or at least make him run around back there a little bit before he gets headed upfield.
Forrest Gregg, who you just saw on the sidelines talking about the Super Bowl, Bob, I guess has been there about as much as anybody, was one of the captains of the Lombardi Packers when they won the first 2 Super Bowls, was a player coach on the Dallas Cowboys when they won it in '71. Had his Bengals there last January and is optimistic about doing that again, although expects to go the distance if he does it there again. Here is Gary Allen breaking tackles. Allen into open field, a little back from Hawaii's out to midfield, and so the Oilers do get a big play to open the second half. As Gary Allen, a rookie draft choice out of the University of Hawaii, uses his blockers well and weaves his way up the field for 38 yards.
This is a phase of the Houston Oilers that historically has been one of the best parts of their offense. Their special teams, Allen, Roaches, Tullis, they have all produced big plays. This is the first one for Gary Allen, a rookie out of Hawaii.
The Oilers starting off with their best field position of this game, and Earl Campbell improves on it as he takes the ball inside the 40 and down to the 39-yard line of Cincinnati. Tyler Rose busted on down to the 39-yard line. He gained 8 yards on his first carry of the second half. And Jim LeClaire, the veteran linebacker for Cincinnati and a longtime teammate of yours, Bob, is down.
And Jim LeClaire, for about the last 8 or 9 years, has had problems with a pinched nerve in his neck. He wears 3 collars to try to avoid it, but when you hit Earl Campbell, he can cause some pain. Now, I noticed in that first play, the Houston Oilers back in the I formation, and they gave the ball to Earl Campbell.
So while Jim LeClaire is being attended to, there's a break in the action here at Riverfront Stadium with the Bengals leading as they did at halftime 10-0. Jim LeClaire, a key member of the Bengals now for 11 seasons, goes out after being shaken up. Rick Rosano goes in to fill his linebacker position, number 51. Gifford Nielsen has a second down and 2 coming up for the Oilers as they've moved the ball the best they have in this game. They go to Earl Campbell, breaks tackles. Campbell with a first down to the 35-yard line. This 1982 National Football League game is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. By Goodyear, put the blimp behind you, come up to Goodyear. And by light beer from Miller, everything you've always wanted in a beer and less. Don Criqui with Bob Trumpy on a hot, humid, overcast day in the Queen City of Ohio, Cincinnati. The Bengals leading 10-0, but the Oilers starting to mount a challenge here now early in the third quarter, and that's that I set up with Campbell, the deep back. Here's Campbell, stung, hit hard. Coming up to get him was Eddie Edwards, a 265-pound defensive end out of Miami of Florida.
I think you saw on Donnie Kraft there, the rookie 12th round draft choice out of Louisville, that the difference there is between he and Tim Wilson. Watch number 40. Reggie Williams hits him, makes Earl Campbell change and go back up to the line of scrimmage. Eddie Edwards there to meet him. And it appears now with this decent field position by the Houston Oilers, they're going to keep giving it to Campbell.
Adger Armstrong out of the game. So a rookie is called on the start. On second down and 11, the Bengals are there, and they're keying on 34, and they get him as he gets just down to the 34-yard line. Eddie Edwards again led the way. It was kind of that for Earl Campbell. Washington now going ahead of Philadelphia at halftime, 14-13. Joe Theismann passed to Charlie Brown from 8 yards out. The LA Rams at halftime are really rolling behind their new quarterback, Burt Jones, leading Green Bay 23-0. Baltimore, the battle of the 2 and 14 teams, leading New England 3-0. Mike Wood hit a field goal. Oilers only 1 of 4 on third down conversions, and this is a tough one. It's 3rd and 9. Campbell gets the ball. Campbell doesn't get much as he's knocked down by Mike St. Clair, number 72, a big rangy defensive end from Grambling.
Interesting coverage. Mike St. Clair, as you said, Don, defensive end, out as a linebacker on Earl Campbell. And I believe I'm correct in saying that throughout this series, the only man to touch the ball offensively for the Houston Oilers, Earl Campbell. Here's the Oilers are going to go for it here. It's 4th down and 6 down.
Let's see what they go to. The Houston Oilers looking to extend drive of the game. 4th down and 6 at the 31-yard line of Cincinnati. 11:24 to play in the 3rd quarter. Bengals lead 10-0. Oh, they're looking for a penalty. It doesn't come. They didn't jump offside. The Oilers take a roll of the dice, and it comes up snake eyes. Cincinnati takes over on a quarterback sack with Ross Browner keying it. Get their biggest defensive play. We'll be back to Riverfront Stadium with the Bengals and the ball right after this.
Baseball. Reggie and company in a must game with the Blue Jays. And the Royals travel to the Dome against the Twins. A Western Division showdown on NBC Sports.
Don, one of the things shown graphically right here for Gifford Nielsen, we've seen Ken Anderson with receivers everywhere, all kinds. Gifford Nielsen has absolutely nobody to throw it to. You can't blame Gifford Nielsen for that particular play. And I remember a comment made by Dave Casper that he thought the offensive game plan, passing game, was elemental. It wasn't really very sophisticated. There's evidence.
Well, we'll see what the Bengals do now on evidence first down, because they have the prime mover in this game, Ken Anderson, running the offense. Brazil comes up to make the stop for the Houston Oilers as the ball went to fullback Pete Johnson of the Cincinnati Bengals. 3rd quarter clock showing 10 minutes and 50 seconds to play. The Detroit Lions leading their arch rivals, the Chicago Bears, 10-7, as Bob Thomas, who was kicking field goals the last 8 years at Chicago, was waived on Monday, picked up by Detroit, and he just hit a 39-yarder to give the Lions the lead. 2nd down and 8 for Cincinnati. 2 wide receivers set left. Lone setback is Johnson. He blocks for Anderson as the strike is thrown. A connection is made down across midfield. Dan Ross, the tight end, coming up with a 1st down ball. 10-yard gain.
Now, I just got word that J.C. Wilson, the cornerback of the Houston Oilers, in the locker room having his shoulder x-rayed. Bill Kay taking his place. And the Oilers went into this game with an injury list that's usually kept for the 15th or 16th game of the season. Now JC's back out. We'll try to find out how injured he is, but it is a bad shoulder.
Oilers without Greg Bingham, Vernon Perry, the strong safety, Ken Burrow, the great wide receiver, Adger Armstrong, the runner, rookie fullback they like from Michigan. Stanley Edwards is missing this game. But it is a game of attrition, and people get hurt. You have to go with what you got. That's one of the reasons the Bengals did so well last year. They had virtually no critical injuries.
But it's unusual to have the type of injuries that the Oilers have had. I mean, they've had broken bones. Burrows, there's a tie score now, Baltimore, New England, 3-3.
Shootout. Rex Robinson hit a 24-yard field goal. Get New England on the board. Those 2 teams played at the end of last season, and it's feared that neither team would win. They both have new head coaches, though. I think there's some whip cracking going on in Baltimore and Foxborough. That Cush will crack the whip. Alexander on 2nd down and 10 takes the ball down to the 45-yard line. As he goes down, a penalty marker comes way in from off the play.
Side judge is generally watching the tight end. That's his #1 responsibility. The years that I played the game, I certainly learned those guys' number, holding Bengals.
And they learned yours, number 84.
Only if you get caught. Only if you get caught.
I see the Bengals haven't retired 84.
No, they put it back in mothballs. See if it's on the tight end.
Holding offense number 46.
Fullback Pete Johnson.
One of the rare mistakes the Bengals have been guilty of in this game. But despite their dominance in yardage and in time of possession, their lead would be right down to something real close if the Oilers can get it in the end zone. Cincinnati continues to lead as they did at halftime, 10-0. 2nd down and 20 coming up from their 42. And down goes Ken Anderson as Darryl Skogstad. A big middle guard from Cal at Berkeley. there, but Anderson, in his wisdom, and we talked about his lowest percentage of interceptions of any quarterback in NFL history, knows the value of eating the ball and going down with a sack rather than putting it up under a rush and having it intercepted.
Another point, too, Ken Anderson, I repeat, second leading rusher on this team in 1981 and led NFL quarterbacks in yardage through rushing last season, so he's not afraid to run it either.
3rd and 24 now as the Oiler defense is forcing some long yardages here. Long ball, Collinsworth going for it, and Chris Collinsworth catches the ball. There's a penalty marker down. He was bumped anyway. And it won't be penalty yardage. It will be reception yardage as Collinsworth catches it over the shoulder on Greg Stemrick.
And if things are going bad for the Houston Oilers, Greg Stemrick is their best defensive back. 52 yards on the reception. And there is no way in the world, with a 3rd down at 24, that the Houston Oilers should allow that type of reception. Those defensive backs' #1 priority is not to let that receiver get behind them. But as you can see, the ball is put up for Chris Collinsworth to run under. There's the incidental contact. Collinsworth looking back for the ball, Stemrick not. Therefore, the flag. And it's a big 1st down.
Collinsworth, the fabulous rookie receiver a year ago, when he came in with 67 receptions for 1,000 yards, and 8 times he was in the end zone in the regular season. Now the 52-yard gainer gets the Bengals out of trouble and gets the Oilers in it again. Charles Alexander takes it up the middle and runs it down to the 2-yard line. And the penalty marker's down, and the Oilers are clapping. They think it goes against Cincinnati.
With that long pass play, the Bengals are now 9 of 12 in 3rd down conversions.
A hold is signaled against Cincinnati. Forrest Gregg, as an offensive tackle of Hall of Fame proportions, he was inducted, as you know.
Offense,
Like
holding number 60.
The center, they got Blake Moore.
You'll see the big guys up there in the middle. A good job by Charles Alexander reading those blocks. Kind of hard to distinguish the holding in there. Interesting point on Forrest Gregg. Are you aware that he made All-Pro at 2 positions in the same year? Guard and tackle for the Green Bay Packers.
Was it All-Pro on the same team? In other words, he was both positions in one poll. That might stand as long as the DiMaggio hitting record. Kenny Anderson in trouble in Brazil. Zagarda can run you into it. As number 52 takes Kenny Anderson out of bounds with the chase.
Okay, it appears now the Houston Oilers think their best bet against the Bengal offense is the blitz. Brazil was on the blitz. They're trying to game up front as best they possibly can to confuse the offensive line of the Bengals. Another point, too, with J.C. Wilson hurt, the Oilers are now first faced with putting Willie Tullis, a great return man, as a defensive back. He's not a bad cornerback, but he's not used to playing there consistently. And there you see him. He'll be out there at times in single coverage, although zone most of the time for the Oilers.
Isaac Curtis is out wide to the right. They might be looking at Isaac on this play. They swing it out, and Pete Johnson gets it. Look at that. Pete Johnson splits 2 tacklers, and Pete Johnson almost makes it into the end zone. The big Buckeye almost goes the distance. As it was, he got 20.
I want to tell you, I just mentioned Willie Tullis playing cornerback. Watch the price he's got to pay. Isaac Curtis behind him doing a good job pushing off the cornerback. But here comes a wreck. Ted Thompson and Willie Tullis, a mismatch for those steamroller thighs of Pete Johnson. 1st down Bengals. Or is it? Take it back. He didn't make a 1st down, but he certainly left an impression on Willie Tullis.
Well, it was a 2nd and 24 carry, so Bobby Still, as you know, has another down here.
1st down.
Look at this play. Hard as they could hit him, no deals.
You know, Don, you'd think a guy that size wouldn't have that agility. Guess again.
Now the power formation is set left, and that's where they go with Pete Johnson on the payoff end, but he does not get it across the white line. He does get it down close to the 2, and it looks like he might have the 1st down. He'll be very close to it. Fourth down coming up if he's short.
Remembrances of Super Bowl 16, in which Pete Johnson tried to get in the end zone against the San Francisco 49ers, stopped by Jack Reynolds, Dan Bunz and company. And it's interesting that through this preseason and in practice, Forrest Gregg has usually begun each day's work with that play.
Super Bowl 17 coming up in January 1983, and NBC will be at the Rose Bowl. Right now, Cincinnati getting off to a fast start. Goes for the touchdown throw, but it comes in low to Pete Johnson. He caught 4 for scores last year, ran for 12 more. He was the leading scorer from the touchdown standpoint for the Bengals.
Most difficult pass reception for a receiver to make. Running straight away from the football. Anderson waits for him to look back, and it's low, and Johnson's momentum carries him away from the ball. You see it sinking to the ground. Now third down and about 1.5 touchdown.
This will be a tough lead to overcome. You remember the Oilers gambled on 4th and 6. Nielsen dropped the throw. They had their deepest penetration. But the Bengal rush got Nielsen, and the Cincinnati Bengals then took over the ball, and they've driven from there. Here is Anderson, a 7-yard carry rusher last season. He goes in for a touchdown. He was the second leading rusher last season. He gets...
I believe Ken Anderson got dinged, too. It looks like he got an elbow or a knee in the head. Got up a little shaky. You'll see here as he dives into the end zone. Another third down conversion now, 10 of 13. And I imagine Forrest Gregg has got his heart in his throat. Watch Bill Kay's knee. Well, it kind of hit him in the back, but 6 points, he's in there. It's unusual for a quarterback of 13 years experience to sacrifice his body that way.
The extra point by Jim Breach is up and good. And so the Bengals now open up a commanding 17-0 lead as they're rocking and rolling in Cincinnati with the defending AFC champions off to a great start in '82. Houston will be getting the back off. A 52-yard pass on a long yardage play when it appeared the Bengals were in trouble, and they were, to Chris Collinsworth, set up the score that ultimately came a moment ago, and Kenny Anderson himself ran at him. Now 17-0. Breach kicks off into and out of the end zone. And so far, Bob Trumpy, Earl Campbell's been able to move the ball from the running standpoint, as you see his numbers, as he usually has in the past against Cincinnati.
You're right. Only one time in Earl Campbell's career with the Houston Oilers has he failed to gain 100 yards against the Bengals. And in that game, the Bengals won. That's my opinion presently, that the Bengals have just about taken Earl Campbell out of the football game. He's in there playing, but they need scores quickly. And Earl Campbell is a grind-em-out type of offensive player.
Down 17-0 and down deep in their own end of the field. Houston might start to go to the bag of tricks now, look for the big gainers. But that Cincinnati pass rush is ready for that, and they'll be digging in and going after Gifford Nielsen as they are now. He throws one downfield. Casper going for the ball, can't get to it. Very nearly Bo Harris did. Not an easy start of the season, Mr. Trumpy, for the Cincinnati Bengals. They, of course, next week will be at Three River Stadium, play the Steelers.
It's interesting that they open up against the AFC Central Division. Houston today, Pittsburgh next week, Cleveland the following week.
At Cleveland, right.
At Cleveland.
Forrest Gregg says these are division games. They count double. Second down and 10 for Gifford Nielsen. He goes to Earl Campbell on the draw. Campbell takes it ahead across the 20 to about the 24. It'll bring up third down and about 6. 7:05 to play in the third quarter.
And I think the Bengals would be very happy to see the Houston Oilers give the ball to Earl Campbell and let him gain 4 yards at a crack, because I think the clock's going to beat him.
Earl Campbell running for 45 yards and 13 carries so far. Gifford Nielsen has thrown only 6 times, has completed 3 for 9 yards, all in the first half. Fumble, free ball. Looks like Reggie Williams came up with the ball. And so, with threatening skies, it has begun to pour. Not from a rain standpoint, but from a Bengal standpoint on the Oilers as they come up with a fumble recovery, and now will be going point blank from inside the 10-yard line, 1st and 10.
into a mismatch.
We'll be back as the Bengals try to put up another touchdown right after this.
Down in the early part of this game, we talked about big question mark for the Bengals, their defense, but you can see on the blitz, it appears to me Bo Harris, number 53, just slaps the ball out of Gifford Nielsen's hand. Fallen on by Reggie Williams. First and about 7 or 8 yards to go for a touchdown.
It was Bo Harris, Bob, who got the ball with the hand slap as he made the tackle, and then Reggie Williams, his teammate and fellow linebacker, came in, and now Anderson looks, throws, touchdown, Cincinnati. Charles the Great from LSU. Alexander goes in for the score.
The Bengals have made it look easy. Now with that turnover and that touchdown, 334 yards offense to 57 for the Oilers.
Unbelievable. Ken Anderson himself has run for a touchdown. He's passed for 2, completing 21 of 29 for 273 yards. So a year ago, Anderson had his problems and was yanked. This year, he's played one of those great games ever. The Bengals with a 24-0 lead kickoff once again. Roaches at the 11-yard line. To the 20. And then he's swept under by a wave of white-shirted Cincinnati Bengals. What a day it has been for the Bengals. At the outset, I was mentioning how Isaac Curtis said, I think we're ready to score a lot of points. I think Isaac knew something.
I don't think he expected this, though. This Houston Oiler defense has been real tough on the Bengals historically. But I repeat that with the Bengals leading by 24 points now, I think they've in effect taken Earl Campbell out of the ball game for the Houston Oilers, and he's their biggest offensive weapon.
Well, right now, Nielsen and the Oiler offense get set to go. Earl's in there as the deep back. They've got to start pitching. Campbell with a slashing run takes the ball out from the 20 to the 24. The other scores coming in, and Washington now falling behind Philadelphia. Wilbert Montgomery just ran for his second touchdown to bring the Eagles from behind. Green Bay gets on the board with Lynn Dickey throwing to his tight end, Paul Kaufman, for a first touchdown, but still way behind the LA Rams. Vikings extend their lead over Tampa Bay to 14-3. And so it goes on opening day. Here is a pitch and a connection. And the first passing yards of the second half are put up in the book by Gifford Nielsen.
And I think that's the first pass reception by an outside receiver of the Houston Oilers for this entire football game. Nielsen now 4 of 7 for 30 yards. 4 of 8, excuse me, for 30 yards.
The Oilers now send wide receivers to either side. The Bengal cornerbacks playing well off them. They're looking for some deep throws, which have to come before long because the offense ain't getting it done from the ground standpoint. On a 3rd down and 2 carry, Houston can't get through for the first down. And again, Parsley is out to punt for the Oilers.
A slim down Parsley. Lost almost 25 or 30 yards, and there you see.
How about Pounds?
Excuse me, pounds, not yards. For the Houston Oilers, 1 of 6 in 3rd down conversions. For the Bengals, 10 of 13.
Good punt by Parsley. Booming the ball way downfield. Fuller takes it, eludes the first rusher. And the wave of pursuit finally sweeps him at the 30-yard line. Following this game, most of you will see one of football's finest rivalries with a new twist. It's now the Los Angeles Raiders returning to the Bay Area to take on the San Francisco 49ers. The last 2 Super Bowl champions meeting head-to-head. Others will see a fine original lineup. Check local listings for the game and time in your area. Superb coverage through the Super Bowl only on NBC Sports. The LA Raiders. It doesn't sound right, but that's what it is.
At least that's where they play. Now, to accentuate the dominance of Cincinnati Bengals offense, they've not punted today.
Yeah, McAnally was the best in the league, but he hasn't had a chance to show it off. He won the league punting championship, Pat McAnally, by more than 2 yards last year, averaged almost 46 a punt. M.L. Harris gets a shot at taking the ball downfield on an end around. The big tight end rolls out across the 35-yard line. It's going to be ruled that's where he stepped out.
Robert Brazil down at the far 30, the left 30 holding his leg. Performer, outside linebacker. The Oilers already missing Greg Bingham with a broken hip, and unfortunately that appears serious.
Brazil.
Don, generally when you see guys of that size and you see that wince in pain, it looks like kind of bent his right knee a little bit, and I hope that's not ligament damage. But Robert Brazil is one of those guys that's withstood an awful lot of shots, and he's holding his right knee.
Might be his ankle, I think. Looked like Munoz got him on the foot.
With Burrows out with a broken ankle. Adger Armstrong knee surgery. Bingham with his broken hip. Let's see once again if we can see knee or ankle. 78.
Right foot rolls under.
Yes, you're right. Correct. And he's in pain right now. Well, let's hope for the best, and I'm not sure if the Houston Oilers have enough defensive players to take his spot.
Well, you don't replace a player like Robert Brazil. You might put another body in there, but he's one of the best at his position. A great player out of Jackson State, who, as we mentioned earlier, in 7 previous seasons in the NFL has gone to the Pro Bowl 7 times.
You know, Don, he used to, when he first started with the Houston Oilers, play just the weak side. He was so terrific in pass coverage, and they had Ted Washington as the strong side outside linebacker on the tight end. Brazil progressed so quickly that they now stay on their respective sides, and he can take on a tight end with anybody.
There's another banged up Oiler, J.C. Wilson. He had his shoulders x-rayed not long ago. That left shoulder hurt in the first half. Bengals leading big here, 24-0, but there are some tight games around, including this one between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And if this game should get any more out of hand, we'll switch much of our network to Rich Stadium, Orchard Park, New York, and pick up action there. Of course, everyone in the Houston area and throughout parts of Ohio will continue to watch the Bengals in action in their opening day performance, which has been a bravado one. Right now, we're going to pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC television network.
WRC-TV, Channel 4, Washington, D.C.
Good to see Robert Brazil up, if not back in the game. It looks like he's going for x-rays himself right now.
Don, excuse me, Don. One of the interesting things about the NFL, about 5 years ago, they insisted that all stadiums in the NFL have x-ray equipment underneath the stadium so they can find out in a hurry whether or not Robert Brazil has a broken ankle or just simply a sprain. We'll try to give you the word as quickly as possible. At this point in the game, Bengals 19 first downs, Oilers 3.
19 first downs for Cincinnati, just 3 for Houston, and barely any passing yards for the Oilers. Now on 2nd down and 5, the give goes to Pete Johnson, and he takes it ahead. First down yardage for Cincinnati as he goes out across the 40. Forward motion carried into the 44-yard line. 10-yard gain for Pete Johnson, who's opening like he's going to have another 82 as he had an 81. A great year, his best. 1,000-yard rusher, 46 receptions, and 16 touchdowns. He's already scored 1 today. The Giants with Scott Brunner passing to Ernest Gray from 19 yards out the second time those two have connected on a scoring pass, have taken a 14-7 lead over Atlanta. Swing pass to Johnson up the sideline and out at midfield. Got about 6.
Don, Robert Brazil hurt. John Corker comes in at the outside linebacker there. 2 plays right at Corker.
Eagles Bengals have now opened up a 27-14 lead as Ron Jaworski just threw to Wilbert Montgomery. 42-yard touchdown pass play, Montgomery's third touchdown of the game. Washington led 14-13 at one point. St. Louis, reportedly a very good defensive team, has opened up a 14-0 lead over the Saints at New Orleans. Otis Anderson ran 5 yards for the second Cardinal touchdown. 2nd and 5. Coming off the tight end, gets out and across midfield and all the way down to the 40-yard line of Houston. Another 10-yard gain as Anderson, who likes to check out every receiver, is certainly being allotted that time by his offensive blocking.
And they have 2 receivers in Dan Ross and M.L. Harris who are excellent downfield. But they continue to run those little delays. They're not in a hurry to get the ball downfield. Anderson is now, let me check to make sure, 23 of 31 for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And he scored another one. He scored the 3rd touchdown the last time the Bengals were in the end zone. It's 24-0 Cincinnati late in the 3rd quarter. 2:30 to play in the quarter. Johnson dips to the outside. Shuffle gait, and then he accelerates into the Houston defense and down inside the 35.
Once again, running right at John Corker, the man replacing Robert Brazile. Nothing against Robert Brazile, but you've got Elvin Bethea there, who has played for 14 or 15 years. Corker, who has yet to break into the lineup. And a good job blocking by M.L. Harris, getting that linebacker off the line of scrimmage. Pete Johnson does get out there.
David Verser comes into the game. He was the Bengals' #1 draft choice a season ago. That's Archie Griffin aligned as, or Pete Johnson aligned as the lone setback. And right back to Johnson. This is called give it to the fullback and run the clock. 3rd quarter clock goes down to 1:28 to play. Packers get a 2nd touchdown. Eddie Lee Ivory on a 6-yard run. They now trail Green Bay 23-14. To play in the 3rd quarter. Bengals led at the half 10-0. Houston moved on its first possession of the 2nd half, keyed by a 38-yard kickoff return by Gary Allen. And then it's gone the other way. And now the Bengals moving out to a 24-0 lead, looking to get another touchdown. This is the Pete Johnson offense. Johnson left, Johnson right, Johnson up the middle.
11 of 14 3rd down conversions now for the Bengals, and you saw a quick shot of J.C. Wilson. We've heard from the Oiler bench. Pinched nerve, not serious, but will not return today.
Seconds to go in the 3rd quarter. The Oilers disconsolate over an opening game beating that they're receiving here in Cincinnati. The Bengals, which might be the best team in football you could be watching here, and here is the swing pass. Comes in low for Archie Griffin as time expires in the 3rd quarter. So that is the end of the 3rd quarter with a score. The Cincinnati Bengals 24 and the Houston Oilers nothing. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. With Bob Trumpy, this is Don Crickey back at Riverfront Stadium, Cincinnati, Ohio. Earl Campbell on the left has been unproductive today because nothing has gone right for the Houston Oilers. Ken Anderson, conversely, has been absolutely brilliant behind excellent pass blocking. He's heading for a 300-yard passing day. Close to it already with 2 touchdown throws, and he's ran for a 3rd. As the Houston Oilers have fallen behind 24-0 as we open the 4th quarter with a 2nd and 10 play. Anderson looking to get some deep. Now goes out to Collinsworth. And Chris Collinsworth, live and quick, moves down the sidelines, goes out of bounds at the 19-yard line. Numbers, Bob Trumpy, are rather overwhelmingly in favor of Cincinnati.
That time of possession is something coming into this game I thought would be switched. With Earl Campbell and his ability to run the ball against the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought they'd have it forever. The Bengals have run 50 plays to 22 offensively for the Houston Oilers.
Anderson, in his 12th year out of Augustana College, the man that Paul Brown said back in '71 would be the best of all those great quarterbacks drafted that year, and he's proven to be statistically. Hands off to Charles Alexander, who takes the ball down to the 17-yard line. It was 3rd and 1, and Alexander carries for another Cincinnati first down. The chains move on down the field as the Bengals continue to.
They've done that a bunch today, haven't they? Moved those chains down the field. Now 12 of 15 third down conversions.
Gets rough again next week, though, for these Bengals as they head to Three River Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then on to Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland Stadium, and the Browns. Anderson looking to get it all with one fling of the arm. He goes down. They don't like Anderson to run, but he can, despite surgical knees. He was a 7-yard-a-carry rusher last season when he ran for Cincinnati, their second leading runner with over 300 yards.
Don, I got to believe that if the Bengals get the ball in the end zone here, or at least 3 points, that Forrest Gregg might take Ken Anderson out. He is the league's most valuable player. He won everything last year except the seal of good housekeeping. And they want to keep him healthy because when Ken Anderson is healthy, this team is an offensive. They make it an art form when it comes to offense.
Anderson out of the backfield to Alexander. Charles Alexander working hard on a 2nd down and 12 play from the 17-yard line. Takes it inside the 10-yard line of Houston. Darrell Hunt finally knocked Alexander out of bounds. An 8-yard gain on the play, and you see Ken Anderson now has a 300-yard passing game. A literally perfect effort by Anderson. Look at those numbers. 25 of 34. He's not been intercepted. Has thrown for 2 touchdowns, and he's run for 1.
That's Ken Anderson's second straight 300-yard game. Last one being the Super Bowl, even though he lost. He's off and running.
Down and 4. Again, the outlet man gets it. Pete Johnson. Good coverage by the Bengals the Oilers secondary. Bill Kay was covering. Clock is down to 13:13 to play in the ball game. Bengals opening up with a long sustained drive. Their first possession after the opening kickoff. Anderson to Dan Ross from 18 yards, and they were up 7-0.
Just saw Forrest Gregg. Forrest said in summer camp for the Bengals that Vince Lombardi told him one time that it's very, very difficult to win, but it's almost impossible to sustain winning. Obviously, Forrest has done a great job this summer because this team is in mid-season form already.
Field goal by Jim Breach is on the way and through the uprights. So Breach again extends the Cincinnati lead. It is now 27-0. We'll be coming back to Riverfront Stadium and the Bengals kickoff. Breach is getting a lot of work with field goals and kickoffs after
Super Bowl 17. There's only one network where you can experience both. On NBC, sports like no one else does and no one else can.
The final score, Cincinnati 27, Houston 6. So the Bengals start off in fine fashion. Green Bay has come from nowhere. They were down 23-0. They now lead 28-23.
Well, I think we saw a star born in Marcus Allen, and we might have seen a coaching genius that most people know about, but the whole public hasn't really seen. Tom Bass went from Tampa Bay to San Diego, and you talk genius. You're talking making the San Diego defense only give up 3 points to somebody, even Denver.
All right, Miami, of all people, the highest scoring team. You told me before you went on the air that you wouldn't have been surprised with the Woodstock business and with the Jets' offensive line problems. You thought you wouldn't have been surprised if the score was low, but here we had Miami.
Once again, my logic did not hold up, but one thing that didn't surprise me is that after all this time to think about it, Shula did come out and do what he could do. Two New York notes. One, and I say this in the spirit of another guy who takes his lumps, the New York Post this week named the Giants and Jets to finish in the Super Bowl. Guys, I know how you feel. Also, I know how Ivan Lendl feels. Jimmy Connors just beat him.
Jimmy Connors is the United States Open champion, so what a double for Jimmy Connors, winning both Wimbledon and the U.S. Open here in 1982. Let's take a look at the complete list of scores here on opening day for NFL 82. Cincinnati beating Houston 27-6. On we go at the Meadowlands. The Falcons beat the Giants 16-14. Redskins winning that overtime game 37-34. Green Bay, after trailing 23-0 at halftime, came back and won it. Buffalo over Kansas City. The Royals outscored the Chiefs 18-9. Baseball versus football in Kansas City today. Detroit beat Chicago 17-10. St. Louis over New Orleans 21-7. Stabler did play some. Minnesota beating Tampa Bay in the home opener. New England over Baltimore. Raiders over San Francisco. Miami taking care of the Jets 45-28. San Diego over Denver. Cleveland beating Seattle. I'm Len Berman for NFL 82. Thanks for being with us all day long on opening day. Our thanks to the entire NBC Sports staff. See you next Sunday, everybody.